please.
You take some more questions.
Yes, I'd like to ask the panel if you feel that there is ever a time, and I'm speaking of situations where the very continued existence of our country is at stake, if there's ever a time when it would be appropriate to stray from the bodies of law that together we have termed international law here in the last couple of days, if appropriate to do so in order to, again, when our existence is at stake, and if so, what is that cutoff? What's the criteria?
I was involved in a case a few years back at the International Court of Justice which raised a very stupid question. Are there any circumstances in which the legality of the use of nuclear weapons is lawful? And with a stupid question, you got, not surprisingly, a stupid answer, with great respect to my friends on the International Court of Justice. They concluded their advisory opinion with the view that there may be circumstances, not entirely predictable, in which the very survival of a state is at stake, such as to justify the unthinkable. Not, I think, in legal terms, a particularly helpful approach to the analysis. And I think your question reminds me of the arguments in relation to that situation. To bring it down to something more direct, I think what you're getting at, and it's a hugely important question, it's the ticking time bomb theory, in a sense. Are there circumstances in which we could countenance the use of torture, let us say, or other coercive forms of interrogation to obtain information in order to protect those we love who may be damaged on a very wide and unimaginably wide scale? And I've thought a lot about that question. I've thought greatly about that question as I went around America talking to people who were charged constitutionally with protecting the citizens of the United States, many of whom I think genuinely believe that they were in that situation in seeking to take steps to protect the United States. And I think the conclusion that I've come out with in relation to that narrow refinement of your question is that there are no circumstances in which the use of torture is justified as a matter of law. There may be circumstances in which an individual is willing to take on the responsibility of engaging in certain acts, but should do so in the knowledge that the full weight of the law may come down on him or on her in the event that he ever faces some sort of legal process. And it's an important distinction because it places the responsibility on the individual to make that determination. And that isn't hypothetical. There's just been a very interesting case in the German courts involving a German policeman who threatened the use of torture on a man who was thought to have abducted a child in order, in desperate situation of time, to try to recover that child before the child died. And in fact, that didn't happen. They found the body of the child, but only after he had been killed. And then a question arose as to whether the policeman concerned should be prosecuted. And the German courts and eventually the European Court of Human Rights essentially came up with the solution that I've come up with. It's a matter of individual determination, and it comes back to something I said earlier, that in such circumstances the individual has to take that responsibility, and ultimately it becomes a sentencing issue. But more broadly, I don't think it's sensible or prudent to proceed on the basis that there are gaps in the law. It may be that the Geneva Conventions or other norms of international law are inadequate to deal with certain situations that we face. What you do in those circumstances is not what Alberto Gonzalez did. You don't say those rules are quaint, so we're just going to get rid of them. What you do is you get together with your allies, and I think you'd be pushing an open door, and say, right, there's a new situation that we face. Let us move collectively to put in place appropriate new rules. But a laws-based system basically tells you that until those new rules are put in place, you are stuck with the old rules. And if you begin to dramatically change the old rules, you unilaterally get yourself into great difficulty. And this comes back actually to something that we discussed yesterday, where I think, if I understood correctly, I disagree with Mary Ellen, and that concerns a subject that perhaps we can put on the agenda, the circumstances in which a state can use force when it is attacked, as the United States was, on September the 11th, 2001. The day after that, the Security Council adopted a resolution unanimously recognizing the right of the United States to use force, military force, in self-defense, notwithstanding the fact that the attack appeared to have come from a non-statal actor. And that's important for two reasons. Firstly, it confirms that there are circumstances, as there must be, in which the international legal order is pragmatic and realistic and recognizes, oh, you can't have a situation where you can attack if it's a state, but you can't if it's not. Plainly, that would be absurd. But also it shows how quickly the international legal system is actually able to move and create an effective, workable solution to deal with a particular situation. I hope that answers your question. I think the system of rules we have is delicate, we need to look after it, and the United States there has a uniquely important role in helping us move forward on these issues.
Could I just say something about the Security Council resolution?
Sure. Hold this one over.
I would just urge caution on your analysis from the Security Council resolution. It's very limited. It says that the United States has the right of self-defense, but it doesn't in any way eliminate the other elements that you have to show for lawful self-defense, that you have to take the defense against the responsible party, that your defense has to be necessary and proportionate. None of that is in the Security Council resolution. There's just an acceptance that, yes, the attack could lead to the rise of an Article 51 self-defense, and that I absolutely agree with.